Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story. Hello there, this is Dr. James W. Smith, your host. So, when you listen to any of the Deal by Me podcasts, please support this podcast with a donation or a monthly recurring amount for as little as $3. To supporters of this podcast, we say thank you. Check out my encouraging, inspiring, and transforming books that can be found on Amazon. I'm available for speaking engagements, so please contact me by Facebook and or LinkedIn. I have with me Maureen Santora, who began working in the New York City public school system in 1967. She was an early childhood teacher for over 25 years. She took time off to raise her four children. Christopher, who is her only son and who entered the Fire Academy to become a firefighter in January 2001, died a hero on September 11th, 2001. I'm excited to have Maureen come and share with listeners of this podcast today. And so, Maureen, would you share a little bit uh, to listeners of this podcast, a little bit about yourself and where you are uh, residing at the time of this interview?
Hi, Dr. James. I'm very glad to be on with you today. Um, I am living in the same building that I grew up in Astoria, New York. I moved to a different floor. When I had my children, we have a larger apartment, but I am in the same building. So I've never moved out of the neighborhood. And my son grew up you know, in this building, and he played basketball, and it's a great neighborhood. So I'm not
Mhm.
ever going to move. But I'm not only am I a wife of 53 years, but I am a mother of three daughters who are living, and of course my son. I was an educator for a long, long time, and I had the opportunity to work with the little children, which is the joy and just the beauty of education in every respect. I have nine grandchildren, and so as fate would have it, only two are girls and all the rest are boys. And we often say that, my son up in heaven made sure that there was a balance in the family because he grew up with three sisters and wasn't too happy about that until he got much older, when he got conned them into doing all the activities and the chores for him. But I have a good life, and I've been blessed in a lot of ways, and I'm very grateful for all my blessings. And losing Christopher probably was one of the most horrible things that happened to me. And you have to make a decision in life when somebody who you love dies, and when a tragic event happens. How are you going to live the rest of your life?
Mhm.
And so my husband and I decided that we were going to keep his memory alive. And I wrote three books, in his honor. And I've been blessed. I've been blessed.
Okay. Well, it's good to know that you are doing well and somehow you have are adjusting and maybe looking forward to more good times of writing. And that's one way to really kind of keep things alive with us is to sit down and put it on paper and talk about it. And I see that's what you are doing, and especially as it relates to your son. Um, I want to begin by wanting you to just tell in your own words uh, your book title, because I don't normally do this in the beginning, but I do want listeners to know this and keep it in their mind as we move forward. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to share again, but share with listeners your book title and what it's all about.
Okay, well, I wrote three books. The
Okay.
first two are picture books for young children. The Day the
Okay.
Towers Fell, which is the story of September 11th for young children. And then the story of my son Christopher, which is Christopher growing up and how he made mistakes. And it really didn't matter because I loved him unconditionally forever and ever. The third book is We Remember, and it's a collection of stories written by siblings and parents and best friends about some of the people who died on September 11th. And I decided, my feeling in this was that the tragedy of September 11th was that the people died. It was
Hmm.
not the buildings. It was that people died and lives were shattered and lives are still shattered after
Hmm.
almost 25 years. So I wrote out to the many organizations that, were started after September 11th, and I invited people to write their story about September 11th. And it was wonderful that people responded to me, and I
Hmm.
didn't change their stories. I asked them to write about the growing up years, and I asked them to include, you know, uh, the the stories that would help young children know that if you had a good family, if you had dreams, if you were willing to work hard, you would be very successful, as these people were.
Hmm.
And the book includes firefighters, corporate executives, people who were on the airplane. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful collection of stories that I'm very proud. I'm very proud of this.
Tell the listeners what the title of your book is.
It's We Remember. We
We
remember, yes, the story,
we remember. Uh,
yes.
I want listeners, please remember that we remember by Maureen Santora. But I'm going to give you the opportunity to share that again as we move forward. One of the things that I'm interested in, as I always ask authors, what is it that you want listeners to readers to get from reading your book? Is there something particularly that you were focusing on that you
Well,
want to resonate with them as they read or listen to,
Well, I
to this
wanted
podcast?
them, I wanted to, listeners to know that the people who died were just average, ordinary people who
Hmm.
lived in homes with love and affection, and sometimes they had to be reprimanded growing up. They were not perfect. They, did not become successful out of luck. It was because of hard work
Hmm.
and perseverance. And I also wanted them interesting when I had all the collection of stories, there was a common thread in all the people who submitted their stories, and that was that they were doers. They were people who acted. They didn't stand on the sidelines. If there was a problem, they were the ones that went over, and that included the corporate, executives and the workers as well, not only the firefighters. And
Hmm.
I was very surprised to see that. They were the kids who helped the child who fell down in the playground, or the kid who, was helping a student when they, may not have been as popular. And I thought that was just a wonderful, wonderful characteristic that came out in like unison of all the stories that were written. And
Hmm.
I was very, very pleased to see that because those are people who we want in our society.
Okay, I see that, and I hear what you're saying very clearly. But I'm trying to, if I were to reach a book, and I have not yet, I do try to read some of the books I get. I'm interviewing lots of authors, so it's hard for me to read all the books. But this one is sounding very interesting, and so because I'm very aware of September 11th, 9/11 as we call it. So what I'm interested in knowing, if I were to read it, and thinking through it, is there something that you really want me to kind of hold on to? Is it the story of the people who passed because of their lifestyle? And I hear you talking about that quite a bit. Or is it something else that you, or it could be a couple of things, not just one thing. It could be a, a many things that you want listeners or readers to get from it. Is there, I guess I'm trying to get that from you.
Well, in my heart, I
Okay.
know that the stories were written with love. And
Okay.
the people that wrote the stories wrote them with love. And
Okay.
they wanted people to remember their individual person who they lost, who will
Okay.
never be back, and
Okay.
how they have emerged after the death, is something that came through in the books,
Okay.
and
Okay. I think I'm getting you now. So what you were saying is that have this feeling for individuals who have lost their lives, and it's something that we all should have as we go through certain situations. Is that
that's
kind of
correct. Yes,
okay?
yes,
That's
that's
that's what I'm
correct.
trying. That's
Yes,
what I'm trying to get
yes,
from you. Okay,
yes.
now I know that whenever we write a book, there's always something that inspires us to do it. Okay, uh, what was it that inspired you to say, "I'm going to write this book, about 9/11"? Is there anything particular that was going on that said, I need to share this. This is something I need to do. What is that?
Well, for me, it was that there was nothing out there for the younger population. There was
Okay.
nothing for the early childhood. There still is nothing for early childhood and emergent readers.
Okay.
And there's lots of stories for high school students,
Mm.
but they are all technical and historical. The stories that were written in this book are emotional stories. And
Okay.
so that put another element to the 9/11 story. And that was for me the most important element of 9/11, that people lost loved ones for no reason other than hate. And after 9/11, the world came together with love and compassion, and we need a whole lot more of that, especially in today's world, and especially this past week when we've seen so many tragic, horrible,
Mm,
horrible
mm.
things occur out of hatred. And in some way, we need to change our direction
I hear you.
as a society. And
Hmm.
so the books, that I wrote hopefully will accomplish at least a knowledge and an understanding that that's the direction we need to go as
Mm,
opposed to the
mm.
direction that we're in.
Oh Lord, I hear you. That's very, very powerful, Maureen. I that's and also touching. It really is. Your son, obviously, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But he obviously lost his life as a result of the 9/11 attack. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I'm also assuming that you were dealing with quite a bit of grief yourself.
It was the most overwhelming experience of my life.
Uh,
And initially I didn't believe that he had died.
hmm
Christopher was very, very smart. He was the kind of person that you would choose to put on that desert island
hmm
because he was just right on in terms of emergencies. He was calm, he was analytical, he was able to solve problems. And I believe that he had gotten out. In those early days, there were no bodies, and people,
hmm
there was paper, there was, things, but there were no bodies. And so I called every single place that I could think
mm
of. And I thought he had escaped.
mm
But, as truth would have it, that did not happen.
Hmm.
And Christopher was mistakenly buried in somebody else's grave.
Oh,
And we went
wow.
to the funeral, and I just knew God was going to give me back my son. I knew he was going to give me back my son. And 3 days before our memorial service, because we couldn't have a funeral, there were no bodies. So 3 days before the medical examiner came to our home and said, "We've made this terrible mistake. We buried your son in somebody else's grave." And the grave he was buried in was the chauffeur on the truck that Christopher went down to 9/11. And we had gone, that
Oh.
was our very first funeral. And so we went to Christopher's funeral twice. We didn't know it, but we went. But that was my miracle. My
Mm,
miracle was that I got my son back. We still have 1,100 people who have never had any recovery.
mm,
That has changed their trajectory in their grief process, and they are in a different place. For
mm.
me, I needed the confirmation, and God gave me that.
I can feel that with you, Maureen. That's very, very powerful. And 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 it's touching. So I feel you. Um, and I can understand now more about why you really wrote your book. And it, as you say, you wrote it to help young students understand that terrible event of September 11th, 2001. And I am a little curious as to why you wanted them to know what hatred does. Oh, think I got it. I think I got it. Because of the people who actually did this horrible thing on 9/11. Obviously, there was hate there, and that's the reason it was done. Am I
That's correct.
okay?
And it was, as I say, I live in Astoria, which is, it has a lot of Muslims. As a matter of fact, our new mayor lives in Astoria. So, there's a lot of Muslim families. It was not all the Muslims that were
Mm-hmm.
filled with hate. It was
Mm,
an individual group who was determined to bring America down. And so we have to be very careful
mm-hmm.
about, putting everybody in the same box,
I
because
agree.
that's not how it is.
Mm-hmm.
But hatred is a terrible, terrible thing. And, sometimes little kids say, "Oh, I hate you," and
Mm,
they don't know the meaning of hatred. But
mm-hmm.
hatred consumes a person, and it's like a gigantic black cancer that creates just a terrible, terrible outlook on life. And you are just destroyed. And you need to work very, very hard in your life, as much as you dislike people. And everybody has a dislike for
Mm,
somebody in
mm,
this world at one time or another.
mm-hmm.
But you need to work very, very hard not to have your life filled with hatred, because it
Mm.
destroys you.
Well
And
said.
it
Well
it
said.
destroyed, a lot of innocent people,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a terrible thing. And in our world today, we have a lot more hatred than I remember growing up as a child. We need to turn that around. We need to turn that around.
I love it. I love it, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. You know, it's it. There are things that happen in our lives that really gives us a new perspective on life too. And I've had it to happen in my life, and I'm assuming now that I don't have to assume this. I know this has happened in your life that's giving you a new perspective. What would you say that might be for you? What has this done for you as an individual?
Well, I got to choose how I was going to continue to live my life.
Hmm.
And I chose to try and make the world a better place.
Mm,
That was my choice. And so I've become an activist, which I never was. I've
hmm.
spoken out about things which, I would write, or, but I've become more active in a civilized way,
Hmm.
and I have worked very, very hard at forgiveness. And
Okay.
that took many, many years, many
Hmm.
years. You don't forgive hateful acts immediately. You have to work at it very, very hard, and
Hmm.
you have to pray. And I've been blessed having a good faith, and I believe God takes care of everybody. And He certainly is taking care of me. He
Mm.
certainly is taking care of me. And my son is around. He's around. He's in my grandchildren. Some of their personalities are my son's personality, and I laugh now. And
Mm.
you
Okay.
know, but I see him
Uh-huh.
in the world, even though he's physically not with me.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Um, I don't often have authors who I'll ask this question of because before I started interviewing a lot of the authors, you're probably close to 300 uh, podcast interviews I've had. My podcast is in over 10 countries,
Wow.
and 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 I've done close to 300. And I started it once I retired from pastoring because I wanted to do something I thought would be encouraging, inspiring, and transforming for individuals. And so I started a podcast, and I wanted to interview guests who I thought could deliver, a good word to somebody who was going through something
Excuse me.
that would be encouraging, inspiring, and transforming. And I don't always get authors that I can ask that question, but you're one that I want to ask that question to because I feel where you are and I sense what you are doing.
Excuse me.
So, if there's somebody out there who has lost somebody to a terrible uh, situation, and it's make be as a result of hate, and it could be a result of something else, and they're going through something. What is it that you would say to them that would be encouraging, that would be inspiring, and hopefully maybe that be transforming to them? Is there something that you would say to them?
Well, I think every grief journey is an individual journey. And I
Okay.
don't think any friend, relative, any person has the right to tell you when to stop grieving.
Oh.
It is your journey. And grief changes a person in a lot of
Hmm.
ways, but you get to choose how you're going to emerge from this terrible situation. Sometimes it takes years and years. Sometimes it takes less, than that. But it is your journey. You need to be kind to yourself. You need to
Hmm.
understand that there are going to be what I always call bum days, where
Hmm.
you don't want to be involved in anybody. And those are days that you are, sorting out what's
Hmm.
happening, and you need to just be peaceful. Just
Hmm.
be peaceful. But it is your journey, and you get to choose. And I would never be able to tell anybody how to grieve or when to stop grieving because that's not how it goes.
Hmm.
The person that you lose, you've lost them forever, and there's a hole in your heart, and that will never change.
Mm.
That will
I know.
never change. But how
Okay.
you remember that person is your choice. And, everybody gets to choose how they get
Okay.
to do it.
Okay. I love that. Uh, would you share now with listeners how they can get your book? So would you give them the title of it again and tell them where they can get this book? I will uh, say that it sounds to be so informing and so powerful, and that I would definitely uh, recommend the listeners get to read this. Uh, it is one that I'm really saying I need to read it. I was sitting in a restaurant eating on a day of 9/11. So I know that feeling when it comes over on the radio and TV and you're looking right at it. So it is a powerful thing. So share with listeners where they can get your
Well,
book.
all three books, and we
Mhm.
remember, which is what we're talking about
Okay.
today. are on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
We Remember book, my pen name is Maureen Santora, and it's We Remember the Stories of 9/11 written by families. And
Okay.
it's on Amazon, and and then the other two books, My Son Christopher and The Day the Towers Fell, are also on Amazon,
Okay.
and Barnes and Noble.
All right. Well, thank you so much. You've been an awesome guest, and
Thank you so
I
much.
really appreciate the interview and your sharing this uh, time as it relates to your son. It's been great, and I want to just thank you so very much for taking the time to share with us. And there you have it, Maureen Santora sharing with us today. And until next time, peace and blessings be with each of you.